What if I told you that no such magic number exists and that you may want to avoid this mindset altogether?
Deep down, I think we're all really after the same thing, aren't we?
What's that?
That kind of elusive dream. An easier life, maybe a more thoughtful one. A life that allows us the freedom to do what we want, basically when we want to do it.
Yeah, that freedom aspect, that resonates. It's pretty universal.
Totally. And today, we're going to take a deep dive into a question that I know is on so many minds, especially like now with everything changing economically and how we even think about things.
Okay, what's the big question?
It's this. How much Bitcoin do you actually need to retire?
Ah, the million-dollar question. Or maybe the multi-Bitcoin question.
Exactly. But hold on a sec. What if asking that question itself, even though everyone asks it, what if it's fundamentally flawed?
Flawed how?
Like, what if this whole idea of a magic number for retirement, where you're talking traditional stuff like stocks and bonds, or even, Bitcoin, what if it's actually a trap?
A trap. Okay, that pre-intro clip we heard kind of hinted at that, didn't it? Challenging the whole premise.
Yeah, it really sets the stage. It makes us look beyond just, give me the number.
It does. And for this deep dive, we've pulled some really key insights from a pretty thought-provoking source. It's a YouTube video from the Simply Bitcoin channel.
Simply Bitcoin.
Yeah. And this particular video, it doesn't just talk about Bitcoin prices or whatever. It really pushes you to think about what truly lies, beyond Bitcoin when you start talking about retirement.
Beyond Bitcoin.
Interesting.
So our mission today, it's maybe a bit ambitious, but I think it's vital. We're going to try and unpack that traditional idea of retirement, the one, we all kind of grew up with.
The hammock and the sunset image.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
That idyllic leisure scene.
Then we'll highlight its inherent challenges, and some are kind of hidden, especially in today's, let's be honest, rather turbulent and unpredictable economic landscape.
Turbulent is a good word for it.
Uh-huh. And crucially, we want to explore a radically different perspective, a different way to think about financial freedom, about purpose in life, especially for those of you listening who are, diligently navigating this whole world of digital assets.
Right. So I guess what you're saying is this isn't just going to be about crunching numbers or looking at, like, Bitcoin price charts.
Definitely not.
Okay. So this deep dive, it sounds like it's going to explore a whole mix of things. Your health, maybe, physical, mental.
Yep, health is a big one.
Okay. And the economic realities we're all facing every day.
Can't avoid those, unfortunately.
And ultimately, it sounds like it's about a pretty significant philosophical shift, like how we view work, how we view wealth, our whole financial future.
Exactly. It's much bigger than just your savings account balance. It's about how you structure your life, maybe.
That desire to retire.
Mm-hmm.
It feels stronger than ever, but also maybe more aspirational, like harder to reach.
Aspirational, yeah.
Especially now. You see the boomer generations, Gen X, they're hitting those traditional retirement ages in huge numbers.
Right, the demographics are shifting.
And that naturally gets the rest of us, younger generations, thinking, okay, when is our time? When do we finally get to step back, put our feet up, enjoy the fruits of all that labor?
It's the expected narrative, isn't it? Work hard, then stop.
It really is. It's not just like a personal goal. It feels like this powerful societal thing, almost a rite of passage we're taught to aim for. We kind of internalize this idea that there's a finish line, a point where you can just stop.
And that deeply ingrained desire, that narrative, it runs headlong into a pretty stark and uncomfortable reality. Our sources really hammer this point home.
What's the reality check?
It's the current economic landscape. It's the relentless, pervasive rise in the cost of living. I mean, it feels like it touches everything, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Groceries, gas, housing, everything.
Exactly. And just all kinds of ongoing economic uncertainties. You've got geopolitical stuff, supply chains, still kind of weird. It's leading many people, maybe even most people, to believe that traditional retirement, as we've always pictured it,
Yeah, the passive income, the endless leisure.
that it might simply be out of reach for good.
Wow. Out of reach for good. That's bleak.
It is. It's shifting the question from when you'll retire to increasingly if you'll ever truly be able to in that traditional sense.
Which really makes you ask that. What are the actual fundamental problems with that traditional approach? The picture we talked about, passive income, maybe a lake house, lots of fishing. What's inherently wrong with that picture, or why is it becoming so impossible for so many?
Well, let's dive into the primary problem first, and it's often kind of silent, creeping up on you.
Okay, what is it?
It's the relentless one-two punch of inflation and currency debasement.
The big two.
Yeah. Traditional retirement plans, with all their fancy models and projections, they rarely, if ever, adequately compensate for the speed at which our money is losing its purchasing power.
So the plan looks good on paper, but reality bites.
Precisely. This isn't just some academic concept. It's a silent, insidious eroder of your wealth. It chips away at your hard-earned savings while you're maybe not even looking closely.
Like termites in the walls.
Good analogy. Imagine saving diligently for, say, 30 years. You put away what felt like a really comfortable nest egg, then bam, you retire. And within the first 5 years, the cost of your essential meds, your groceries, just filling up the car, it's doubled or tripled.
Ouch.
That's the insidious bite of inflation hitting a fixed income. Suddenly, that comfortable nest egg feels, well, not so comfortable.
And the sources we looked at, they really point this out with some clear examples of debasement, especially like in the political talk we hear all the time.
Yeah, like,
Well, you constantly hear politicians talking about cutting interest rates,
right.
right? Phrases like, oh, Trump wants to cut rates, or someone else saying, I'd love him to lower interest rates a lot.
Right. That's always a popular talking point. Sounds good, doesn't it? Cheaper money, easier loans for houses, for businesses.
Yeah, who doesn't want cheaper loans?
Mm-hmm.
But what's the implication? What's the catch?
Well, let's unpack that because it's huge. When central banks push interest rates down near zero, or they do that thing called quantitative easing QE, which is basically large-scale government asset buying.
Right, buying up bonds and stuff?
Exactly. What they're really doing, in essence, is printing money. Now, to simplify it a bit without getting lost in jargon, they create new digital money to buy government bonds, other financial assets. This floods the system with liquidity, drives down borrowing costs, that's the intended effect, stimulate the economy.
Okay, so far so good.
Well, but it also inevitably expands the overall money supply. Think of it like adding more and more water to a pitcher of juice. The total volume goes up, sure, but the concentration, the strength or purchasing power of each unit of that juice, each dollar, it inevitably gets diluted.
Gotcha. More money chasing the same amount of goods, eventually.
That dilution is currency debasement. It's making each dollar worth less over time.
And then you have those weird periods like during the pandemic lockdowns, right? People were looking around going, hey, where's the inflation? Prices aren't really rocketing up in the stores. What was happening there?
Yeah, that was interesting and kind of deceptive, wasn't it?
It felt weird.
During those lockdowns, demand it couldn't really manifest in certain parts of the economy.
Right.
Businesses were shut. Travel was basically zero. Lots of services just weren't available. It was literally illegal or impossible to buy certain things.
Right. Can't spend money if there's nowhere to spend it.
Exactly. So naturally, you wouldn't see obvious inflation in those specific consumer areas because demand was artificially squashed. But,
Yes.
and this is key, where inflation did show up, and it showed up instantaneously, immediately, in the asset markets. Stocks, bonds, real estate.
So the money had to go somewhere.
It had to. Take the bond market, for instance. Seems abstract, maybe, but it affects everyone. We saw the swap rate on a 30-year note, that's a kind of benchmark interest rate, go down to just 72 basis points.
72 basis points. That's tiny, right? Less than 1%.
Incredibly low. Yeah, less than 1%. Now, when the yield on a long-term bond drops that low, what happens to the price of existing bonds that pay a much higher fixed rate?
Their price must go way up because they're more valuable now.
Bingo. They become significantly more valuable. The source actually describes this phenomenon vividly as hyperinflation within minutes, but specifically within the bond market. It wasn't a slow creep. It was a dramatic, almost instant repricing of these assets.
Hyperinflation in bonds. Wow.
And that wealth, generated almost out of thin air by falling rates, transferred directly and instantly into the hands of those who own those bonds, those assets, mostly invisible to the average person just trying to buy groceries.
And this crazy, uneven jump in asset prices that leads us to that term the sources use, the one that really painted a picture, the K-shaped recovery.
Yes, the K-shaped recovery.
I remember hearing that term thrown around a lot. But for anyone listening who might not be totally clear, can you break it down in simple terms? What does that K really mean?
Sure. It's a really powerful, almost kind of haunting visual metaphor for what happened, especially post-pandemic shock. Imagine the letter K.
Okay, got
The
it.
top left branch, the one going sharply down. That represents Main Street.
Everyday folks, small businesses.
Exactly. The everyday businesses, the small and medium-sized companies, the average consumer struggling with job losses, lower income, all that uncertainty. Now, the top right branch, the one going sharply up.
Let me guess. Wall Street.
You got it. Wall Street, the financial markets, the stock market, big corporations, and crucially, people holding significant financial assets. The source puts it starkly. Main Street shut down, Wall Street recovered, all within 6 weeks.
6 weeks. That's incredibly fast.
It vividly shows how the inflation we didn't immediately see in, like, consumer goods was instantly visible in asset prices. And this created this widening chasm, this huge gap between the financially well-off, whose assets just soared, and the working class, who were struggling to make ends meet. It just poured gasoline on wealth inequality.
And then eventually that asset inflation did start bleeding over into Main Street.
Right.
It became pretty hard to ignore, especially in basic stuff like housing.
Oh, absolutely undeniable. If you look at the data now, the Case-Shiller Index, which is, a pretty standard measure for U.S. house prices, gives us a good benchmark.
Right, the housing index.
The typical house price is up a staggering 19.2% year over year. Just think about the real-world impact of that.
Yeah, break that down.
If you're trying to buy your first home right now, your personal inflation rate for housing isn't the official 2% or 3% CPI number the government talks about. It's 19%.
19. That's insane.
It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's a direct, painful, often just insurmountable barrier for millions trying to get that piece of the dream, trying to secure their future.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, for people who already own homes, it's a windfall, right? Which just widens that case shape even more.
So connecting this back.
Yeah.
If your retirement plan assumes, say, 3% inflation, and you're getting a fixed monthly payment, but housing is up 19%, groceries are up whatever percent, energy's up,
Yeah.
what does that retirement actually look like, that dream of freedom and kicking back? It starts to feel a lot more like a constant stressful struggle just to keep your head above water, right? Just to maintain a basic standard of living.
Absolutely. It fundamentally undermines the entire premise of traditional retirement planning for the vast majority of people. Makes you seriously question if it's even viable anymore.
Okay, so the economics are looking shaky for the old model.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something else earlier, something less obvious but maybe just as critical.
Indeed. It's not just the economic challenges, which are, pretty formidable on their own. Our sources bring up this lesser known, but I think equally critical problem. One that, honestly, it kind of surprised me when I first dug into it.
What is it?
It's the unexpected impact of retirement on your health, specifically your brain health, your cognitive function.
Whoa, okay, that's not something you usually hear about. Usually it's retire, relax, less stress, better health.
That's the common assumption, yeah. But this part of the deep dive was frankly pretty sobering for me, too. The source quotes directly that retirement, the act of stopping work, could speed up aging of our brain. It would make us slower and more forgetful, and ultimately it could increase our risk of Alzheimer's disease.
Wow, speed up brain aging, make us slower, more forgetful, increase Alzheimer's risk.
Yeah.
That's a really stark warning. It completely goes against the usual narrative, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it really does. And it's not just speculation, it's backed by some pretty compelling, robust evidence. The sources highlight a specific study called the Path Through Life Project.
Okay, path through life. What was that about?
It was a big longitudinal study, started around 2001, and they rigorously tracked the same group of participants every 4 years, all the way up to 2015. The main goal was to see how memory performance changed over time, and specifically, they looked very closely at what happened around the transition into retirement.
So how did they test memory?
They used a specific kind of recall task. Participants had to listen to lists of random words categorized like tools, fruit, kitchen utensils, and then repeat back as many as they could remember.
Okay, standard memory test.
Yeah, but it's designed to measure that cognitive ability to encode new info, store it, and then retrieve it. It's a key indicator of overall brain health, not just rote memorization.
And what did they find? Was it just, everyone's memory gets a bit worse as they age?
Well, yes, there was an overall expected decline as people got older. For instance, maybe recalling 8 words at the start and then only 6 words 12 years later. That's kind of normal aging. But here's the crucial finding, the real eye-opener. This decline was almost exclusively restricted to the scores obtained when people were already retired.
Wait, really? Only in the retired group?
Almost exclusively, yeah. Conversely, those participants who continued to work, who stayed actively engaged in their jobs, they showed a pretty stable performance in memory over that same 12-year period.
That is striking. So staying employed actually protected their memory function compared to those who retired.
That's the profound implication right there. It strongly suggests that something seems to happen around the time of retirement that could make people more forgetful. It fundamentally challenges that whole idea that retirement is purely good for your well-being.
So what is that something? Is it just the lack of mental stimulation from work?
That seems to be a huge part of it. Think about the daily mental workout your job often provides, even if it feels routine sometimes. Complex decisions, learning new things, solving problems, dealing with people, deadlines.
Yeah, even annoying meetings keep your brain switched on, I guess.
Maybe, but when that consistent, demanding mental stimulation just disappears, and crucially, you don't actively replace it with other equally challenging activities, your brain can genuinely lose its sharpness, its edge.
Wow. Okay, so this study and this whole idea, it really makes you think differently about how we use our time, doesn't it? Especially that free time in retirement.
Absolutely, our most precious, non-renewable resource time.
And the source uses this really powerful metaphor to illustrate this exact point, the importance of how we use our time, especially in retirement. I want you to really picture this. Imagine we're all members of the Bank of TDEX.
The Bank of TDEX.
Yeah.
Okay, I like it. How does it work?
It's brilliant and kind of stark when you think about it. Every single day, no exceptions, exactly $4,440 gets deposited into your account.
$1,440. Wait, that's the number of minutes in a day, right? 24 times 60?
You got it. 4,440 minutes deposited fresh every morning. And here's the deal. You can do absolutely anything you want with those minutes. Spend them wisely, invest them in learning or health or relationships or, just fritter them away.
Yeah, sounds good so far. What's the catch? There's always a catch.
The catch is non-negotiable. Whatever minutes you don't spend or invest by midnight, poof, they disappear. Gone forever.
No rollover minutes.
Nope. No saving them up. Then the next morning, bam, a brand new clean deposit of 1,440 minutes appears, ready for you to use or lose.
Okay, that's a powerful way to think about time. So how does this relate to retirement?
Well, think about it. In our working lives, a big chunk of that daily deposit, the source estimates maybe around 500 minutes, give or take, for an 8-hour workday, plus commuting, lunch, thinking about work.
Yeah, sounds about right.
That block of time is dedicated to our job. But in retirement, theoretically, you get to keep these extra 500 minutes.
This newfound free time.
Right. On the surface, that sounds amazing, doesn't it? You think, fantastic, what a luxury, all the things I can finally do.
Yeah.
But as our sources reveal, maybe it's not purely a good thing.
Uh-oh, here comes the trap again.
Exactly. This is precisely where the retirement trap comes in, viewed through this Bank of TDEX metaphor. It seems that when people hit retirement, they sometimes, maybe often, become tempted not to invest enough of that newfound time, those extra 500 minutes, into things that are genuinely challenging, purposeful, or mentally stimulating.
Just kind of drift.
Yeah, they sort of drift, maybe unintentionally, into what basically amounts to a permanent vacation.
Yeah.
And look, a week or two of vacation, fantastic, restorative, necessary, but a permanent one. Without structure, without purpose, without that consistent mental engagement.
That has its own serious downsides.
Huge downsides. The research implications here are disturbingly clear, and it goes beyond just this one study. The source states retirement may significantly increase risks like depression and cognitive decline.
Wow. Depression and cognitive decline linked to retirement itself.
And these aren't just abstract risks. They're directly linked to really tangible factors. Things like the increased social isolation that often happens when you leave a busy workplace. And, as we discussed, that significant reduction in mental stimulation that usually comes with a demanding job.
Our brains really do seem to thrive on novelty, challenge, problem solving. When you take that away and don't replace it,
The potential for decline becomes very real, like that unused car on the lawn.
exactly.
So the solution the source offers seems pretty clear and actually quite empowering, doesn't it?
What's the way out of the trap?
It's that staying active and purposeful can mitigate these health drawbacks. It's not just about what you stop doing. It's critically about what you choose to do with that time, with those 4,440 minutes each day.
Actively choosing engagement.
Yeah. Are those choices actively keeping your brain buzzing, your body moving, and your sense of purpose alive and well? It could be anything, right? Learning a new language, picking up a musical instrument, doing really engaging volunteer work, maybe even starting a new, less stressful business or part-time gig.
The key is active, meaningful engagement, not just passive consumption of time.
Exactly. Okay, so we've hit the economic pitfalls, the inflation trap.
Yeah.
We've hit the surprising health costs of just stopping. Now, let's tackle the thing most people focus on when they think retirement planning.
Yeah.
The numbers.
Ah, yes, the calculations, the spreadsheets, the magic number hunt.
We've all done it. You go online, find some retirement calculator, you plug in your current savings, how much you think you'll need per year, your age, and it spits out some huge, daunting, golden number.
And you think, okay, that's the target. Once I hit that number, I'm golden. I'm set for life.
It feels so definite, so comforting to have a target like that.
It does, but that feeling of certainty, that's the core problem our sources zero in on. It's a flaw.
Mm-hmm.
So fundamental, it kind of makes most traditional calculations,
Yeah.
well, almost pointless in the long run.
What's the fundamental flaw?
It's this. Do you truly know what the economic landscape will be when you actually reach that retirement age, when you decide to pull the trigger? The answer? Realistically.
No way. Absolutely no way.
Exactly. No way. None of these models, doesn't matter how sophisticated their algorithms are, how many variables they try to cram in, none of them can possibly factor in the sheer uncertainties of existence.
Uncertainties of existence. That sounds heavy.
It is. They have to operate on assumptions of things staying relatively constant, like consistent inflation rates, predictable market returns, your life expenses staying stable. But the one thing we know about our world...
It's definitely not constant.
Precisely. Constants are exactly what our world lacks. We live in an era of, frankly, unprecedented volatility. Black swan events seem to happen every few years now. Things change fast.
So those calculators are built on shaky ground.
Very shaky ground.
Yeah.
Now, the sources do acknowledge that current conditions, like, okay, the S&P 500 is hitting record highs right now, or maybe Bitcoin hypothetically hits, say, $120,000.
Yeah, if you've got a big portfolio, that looks tempting.
For sure. It might definitely encourage some people, especially those with strong portfolios, to think, okay, maybe now's the time. Let's retire early. These moments of apparent prosperity can be really seductive.
But there's a but.
There's always a but. They immediately reintroduce the critical caveat. Okay, great, but inflation is officially at, say, 2.7% on paper, and Lord knows how much it is in reality.
Right, that on-paper number.
Yeah.
It often feels completely disconnected from what you're actually paying for stuff.
Totally. And as we kind of touched on earlier, that official rate, it's usually a national average. It almost certainly doesn't reflect your personal situation accurately. Where you live matters hugely. The cost of specific things you buy in your local area?
Yeah, my grocery bill inflation feels a lot higher than 2.7%.
Everyone's does. Your groceries, your utilities, your rent or mortgage payments, those make up your personal inflation rate. And often that picture is way different, usually much higher than the headline number. This gap can just demolish a golden number retirement plan pretty quickly. It makes it feel like fool's gold.
So that golden number needs constant revision upwards, basically.
Or maybe the whole idea of a single number is the problem. To really drive home this issue of relentlessly rising costs that often gallop way ahead of any fixed retirement income, our sources give some specific kind of stark figures.
Okay, hit me with the scary numbers.
Let's talk healthcare costs for retirees. There's this sobering chart they show covering 2002 to 2018. And importantly, this is before the big print, the massive money creation in 2020 and onwards.
Okay, pre-pandemic craziness. What's it show?
In 2002, the estimated lifetime healthcare costs for an average retiree were pegged at around $160,000.
Okay, $160K. Still a lot, but maybe manageable for some.
Now, fast forward just 16 years to 2018. That same estimated lifetime cost had jumped to $280,000.
Whoa. From 160 to 280 in just 16 years.
Yep, that's a 75% increase. 75%. Far, far faster than general inflation over that period.
Why such a huge jump in healthcare specifically?
It's a combination of things, right? We have an aging population needing more care. Medical treatments get more sophisticated, but also much more expensive. Prescription drug costs have soared. And the whole healthcare system is just incredibly complex and often opaque. All this puts a massive escalating burden on retirees, especially if they're on a fixed income.
It's really crucial to remember, right, that this huge 75% jump in healthcare costs.
Yeah.
That's on top of the fact that the cost of pretty much everything else has also gone up dramatically.
Exactly. It's not happening in a vacuum.
Your groceries, your car, gas, insurance, property taxes, maybe even just taking a modest vacation. Everything is costing significantly more now than it did 16 years ago or even 5 years ago.
It's a relentless double whammy. Healthcare costs explode and your everyday expenses go up too. It just squeezes your retirement savings from every single angle all at once.
Yeah, that safe withdrawal rate starts looking pretty unsafe.
Totally. And then there's this other chart the source mentions, calls it the funny chart, from Business Insider. It tries to estimate how many millions you supposedly need saved to retire based on the annual income you want, assuming that traditional 4% withdrawal rate.
Ah, the 4% rule. The old classic. What does the funny chart say?
Well, for example, if you want to generate a pretty comfortable $100,000 a year income in retirement, according to this chart and the 4% rule, you'd need to have $2.5 million saved up.
$2.5 million. Okay, that's a lot for most people.
It is. And what if you aspire to a more maybe lavish lifestyle? Say you want $250,000 a year.
Okay, what's the damage then?
That number rockets up to a staggering $6.25 million needed in your nest egg.
$6.25 million. Wow. That way these numbers are already pretty intimidating. They're supposed to give you a target, I guess.
Supposedly. But here's the critical flaw. The reason it's maybe funny in a dark way.
What is it?
That's based on today's prices, isn't it?
Right. That $100 or $250K income target, that's based on what things cost now.
Exactly. Which leads us right back to that crucial, almost existential question. What happens when the inflation rate inevitably goes up? Sometimes slowly, sometimes fast. Does pulling out $250,000 a year mean the same thing 5 years from now? 10 years from now?
My guess is absolutely not. Not even close.
No way. That purchasing power shrinks. That number, $6.25 million, it instantly becomes outdated. Your meticulously calculated golden number just evaporates like mist in the sun. The 4% rule itself, which used to be like the bedrock of retirement planning,
Yeah.
it becomes increasingly shaky, maybe even irrelevant, in a world where you have potentially low interest rates on savings, but stubbornly high inflation eroding your capital.
So the math just doesn't hold up over the long term.
It really doesn't seem to. So you see the big overarching problem here, right, with the traditional way of thinking about retirement, even with these newer Bitcoin retirement calculators that are popping up.
Yeah, what's the core issue?
None of these models, doesn't matter how complex they get, can truly factor in the uncertainties of existence. Life just refuses to fit neatly onto a predictable spreadsheet where everything stays constant.
It's dynamic, chaotic sometimes.
Exactly. It's a dynamic, often chaotic system. And beyond these big economic factors like inflation and market crashes, our sources wisely point out there's a whole other layer of uncertainty. The stuff that happens in our personal lives.
Right. Life throws curveballs.
Constantly. Think about the negative surprises, the stuff you hope never happens but sometimes does. A sudden job loss when you're, say, in your 50s, making it hard to find comparable work.
Yeah, that's tough.
Or maybe a new, unexpected monthly expense lands on you like an elderly parent needing significant financial help or long-term care.
Yeah.
Or, heaven forbid, a giant, unexpected medical bill pops up that your insurance only covers a fraction of. Any one of those things.
Could completely derail the plan.
Yeah. Exactly. It could upend your retirement plans in an instant. Your carefully calculated golden number suddenly feels totally inadequate. It becomes this flimsy shield against real-world shocks. You find yourself having to dip into your capital way earlier or way deeper than planned, eroding your long-term security.
But it's interesting. The source points out it works the other way too, right? Good surprises can also mess with the plan.
Absolutely. That's a fascinating point they make. Positive shifts can also completely change the equation, forcing you to rethink your whole financial path.
Like what kind of positive shifts?
Say you land a significantly better paying job later in your career than you ever expected, or you get a huge unexpected bonus or commission, or maybe, surprise, a massive inheritance comes through from a distant relative you barely knew.
Okay, the dream scenario.
Right. Suddenly, your stacking goals, your retirement timeline, it all shifts dramatically. You might start thinking, okay, maybe I can retire earlier, or maybe I can afford that dream trip, or even, how can I use this to help my kids or grandkids?
Yeah, your goals expand beyond just yourself.
Exactly. You might start considering not just your own future, but the future of those around you, how you can provide for them, maybe set up trusts, or even contribute significantly to causes you really care about. These positive disruptions, while obviously welcome,
Still require you to throw out the old plan.
they still demand a complete reevaluation of that fixed number static approach.
So the conclusion seems pretty clear then.
What do you think it is?
Well, as the source puts it so well, whatever economic position you are in, it is subject to change for better or for worse. Nothing is guaranteed.
Precisely. Relying on a static fixed number in such a dynamic, unpredictable personal and economic world, It's just unrealistic. Maybe even, you could argue, irresponsible. It creates this false sense of security that's almost guaranteed to be shattered by reality eventually.
Okay, so if we wrap our heads around all these massive challenges, the
Hmm.
sneaky erosion of inflation, the surprising health costs of just stopping, the fundamental unpredictability of markets and life itself,
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
it really leads us to this crucial kind of paradigm-shifting realization, doesn't it?
Mm.
Which is what the source says. Really, the question about how much Bitcoin is needed to retire and at what age might be the wrong question entirely.
It's not about finding the number. It's maybe about asking a completely different kind of question.
About how we approach the whole concept.
Yeah. How we approach financial freedom, how we approach purpose in our lives.
So what should we be asking? What's the alternative?
Well, what our sources strongly encourage instead, because they recognize how fluid everything is a far more flexible approach.
Flexible. Okay.
It means letting go of that rigid, fixed target, letting go of that idea of a finish line you cross and then just stop, and instead embracing something much more adaptive, more resilient, something that's ultimately more aligned with the dynamic, changing world we actually live in.
So it's shifting from thinking about a destination
Mm.
to thinking about a continuous journey.
Beautifully put. Exactly. A continuous journey, not a final destination.
Okay, I like that. So how does Bitcoin fit into this flexible approach, this continuous journey?
Well, this new way of thinking frames Bitcoin accumulation stacking sats not as, reaching some finite destination, hitting that magic number, and then you're done.
Right.
Instead, it's viewed as an ongoing lifestyle, a continuous process of building and strengthening your financial position over time.
Stacking as a habit, not a project with an end date.
Precisely. And with Bitcoin's unique characteristics, it's fixed supply. It's predictable, transparent monetary policy that isn't subject to, political whims or sudden central bank decisions.
Unlike fiat currency.
Exactly. Unlike fiat, which is constantly being debased by design, Bitcoin has this inherent property of scarcity. This means its purchasing power tends to increase over the long term relative to those inflating fiat currencies. So with that understanding, every day is a Bitcoin stacking opportunity.
Every day is an opportunity to convert weaker money into stronger money.
That's a good way to put it. And this whole approach, this flexible, continuous stacking, it's really underpinned by a fundamental belief, one we've talked about before, and it really resonates with the core principles of sound money.
What's the belief?
It's that based on the fundamentals that we all know, Bitcoin will continue to rise against the dollar over the long haul.
Okay, so it's a long-term conviction play.
Exactly. It's a conviction based on viewing Bitcoin as a superior, truly scarce asset in a world awash in ever-depreciating fiat currency, a world where governments, when push comes to shove, almost inevitably choose inflation over default.
Right. They print their way out of problems, which devalues the money.
That's the historical pattern. So this continuous stacking, you can do it in different ways, right? It demonstrates real financial sovereignty. The sources talk about stacking and not
Not
stressing.
stacking and not stressing. I like the sound of that.
How? Well, one method they touch on is Bitcoin mining. They even give an example, mentioning sasmining.com, just as an illustration, obviously.
Okay, so mining your own Bitcoin.
Yeah, the concept is you can, for example, place your ASIC, that's the specialized computer hardware for mining Bitcoin.
Right, the miner.
You can place it on, say, a renewable-powered hosting farm. They handle all the setup, the maintenance, keeping it running cool, all that technical stuff. And then you just reliably receive sats, those tiny fractions of Bitcoin, Satoshis.
Like cents to a dollar.
Exactly. You receive those sats streamed directly to your own wallet. So you're actively generating hash rate, contributing to the security of the Bitcoin network itself, and you're earning sats directly, rather than just belling them on an exchange at whatever the market price is that day.
So it's like converting your belief, your energy input, directly into Bitcoin ownership.
That's a great way to frame it. You're converting your belief in Bitcoin's sovereignty, maybe even your electricity cost if you mine at home, into actual earned units of the network. It creates this potential for a continuous income stream, or at least a continuous accumulation, that really aligns with that long-term, self-sufficient, flexible stacking ethos.
Okay, that makes sense. It's an active participation, not just passive holding.
Right. And this whole shift in mindset, moving from chasing a fixed goal to embracing continuous contribution and flexibility, it brings us to this really powerful analogy the source uses, one that seriously challenges the whole traditional idea of retirement as just stopping.
Oh yeah, the car analogy, that one hit me.
It's stark, isn't it? It asks, What happens to a car when it retires on the front lawn?
Yeah, what happens?
It rusts, its parts seize up, birds might nest in it, it just deteriorates rapidly. It completely stops fulfilling its purpose, which was to move, to be driven.
Okay, and the source connects this directly to us.
Directly, it says, same thing that happens to you when you retire. Atrophy and entropy.
Atrophy and entropy. Oof.
If we become idle, if we stop engaging purposefully, the suggestion is that our minds and bodies can follow a similar path of deterioration. It perfectly echoes those health findings we talked about earlier, the increased risk of cognitive decline, depression.
When you stop using it, you lose it.
That's the essence of it, which is why the source concludes with such strong conviction. I don't think we were meant to retire, at least not in that traditional sense of just completely stopping everything productive or challenging.
The evidence seems to really back that up.
It does. The compelling data on the health drawbacks when people aren't actively engaged reinforces this idea. It suggests that humans, fundamentally, we thrive on purpose, on challenge, on continuous contribution, not on endless, empty leisure. Our brains, our bodies, they seem designed for dynamic engagement, not static idleness.
So the recommendation isn't never stop working, is it? It's more nuanced.
Exactly. It's definitely not saying grind yourself into dust until you drop. The nuanced recommendation from the source is more like stack often, but not at the expense of your life.
Okay, find the balance.
Find that crucial balance. It's about integrating purpose, keeping your mind sharp with intellectual engagement, maintaining social connections, weaving all that into your ongoing journey. It's not about aiming for a complete shutdown of all productive or challenging activity.
So it's about redefining what a fulfilling life actually looks like long term, beyond just hitting a savings number and checking out.
Precisely, redefining fulfillment beyond the finish line.
So wrapping this all up, the ultimate takeaway from this whole deep dive, from challenging the retirement number, looking at health, looking at flexibility, what's the core message?
I think it's crystal clear, really. There is no magic number out there, and the future is uncertain, period.
Simple but profound.
Trying to pinpoint some exact static figure for retirement. It's not only probably futile in a world that's constantly changing economically and personally, but it can also set you up for massive disappointment and maybe even a profound loss of purpose when you realize the number wasn't the answer.
So where does true financial freedom and well-being come from then, if not the number?
It seems to come from adaptability, from continuous learning, from building resilience, and from having a deep understanding of your own evolving purpose in this unpredictable world. Flexibility over fixation.
Flexibility over fixation. I like that. So in light of all this, we're kind of left with a final, maybe challenging, thought-provoking question on purpose. And this one is really for you, the listener, to ponder.
What is it?
What does a life of continuous engagement, of flexible stacking, of adaptability, what does that truly mean for you personally? In this unpredictable world we're all navigating, how might this fresh, dynamic approach actually redefine your own journey towards freedom, towards fulfillment, towards a lasting sense of purpose, instead of just chasing a number that honestly might never truly materialize, or even if it does, might not actually satisfy you?
That's the real question to grapple with, isn't it? What does your purposeful, flexible future look like?
Wow. What a journey this deep dive has really been.
Yeah.
I feel like we've genuinely shifted our mindset today, haven't we? Moving pretty powerfully from that conventional, often quite rigid, fixed retirement goal.
Yeah, the number chase.
To really embracing a far more flexible, more engaged, and ultimately more purposeful approach suited for this ever-changing world we're in.
It really feels like a shift from focusing on a finish line to focusing on the quality and adaptability of the path itself. Less about stopping, more about evolving.
Yeah, a continuous, adaptable path of growth and contribution. I like that framing.
That's right. And just to recap, we've systematically kind of unraveled those inherent challenges baked into traditional retirement, haven't we? Particularly grappling with that relentless march of inflation.
The silent killer of savings.
Exactly. And those surprising, often totally overlooked health drawbacks that can come with disengagement and a lack of purpose.
The atrophy and entropy idea.
We explored in pretty good detail why those static calculations, searching for that magic number, are just fundamentally flawed, given the profound unpredictability of everything global economies or individual lives.
Life happens.
Life happens. And crucially, we've unpacked the potential power of continuous action, of flexible Bitcoin stacking as a tool, and just the importance of critical thinking as a potentially more robust, more resilient strategy. A strategy aimed at achieving not just financial freedom, but a truly purposeful existence.
So as we close out this deep dive, maybe consider this one final provocative thought for yourself, something to kind of mull over after you stop listening.
Okay, leave us with something deep.
In this world we live in, full of constant change, unforeseen challenges popping up all the time, maybe true retirement, whatever that word means to you now, isn't actually about stopping altogether, about ceasing all productive engagement.
What is it about then?
Maybe it's about finding a profound personal way to continuously adapt, to contribute meaningfully in whatever way resonates with you, and to build enduring resilience, financial, mental, physical, in every aspect of your life.
Adapting, contributing, building resilience as an ongoing process.
Yeah. And the question that follows is, what new purpose, what new avenues for fulfillment might this more flexible, more dynamic approach unlock for you personally?
That's a powerful question to end on. Food for thought.
Definitely. So, hey, if you found this deep dive valuable, if it sparked some thoughts or challenged some assumptions, we genuinely encourage you to follow, like, and share it.
Yeah, your support really helps us keep bringing this kind of in-depth content to curious minds like yours. We appreciate it.
We really do. And for more insights, more discussions like this, you can find What Bitcoin Taught Me pretty much everywhere. We're on Twitter X, Nostr, Bluesky, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Lots of places to connect.
Yep. So thanks again for diving deep with us today.
Thanks, everyone.